Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming this evening. Today we're going to be presenting on the Taft Avenue Improvement Project, give a little update. This is public information meeting number 2. So I am John Ressler. I'm the project manager for the city for this project. I was not here for the public information meeting number 1, so I am playing a little bit of catch up on this project. But we have Michael Farr and Aaron Moniza in the back there from FOTH that have been diligently working on the design of this project that will be giving a little presentation here. And then afterwards, we can meet with individuals and talk a little bit more individually if you have additional questions or specific questions about your properties. If you have general questions, we can field them after the presentation as well. And then in the back, we also have Jason Havel, the city engineer for Iowa City. So again, thanks everybody for coming, and I'm going to turn it over to Michael to start the presentation.
All right, thanks, John. So yeah, again, thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate you stopping out here tonight. So as John just went through, this is just a list of the project contacts here. So since he's already covered that, we'll just skip on to the next slide here and get rolling. So really, there's really 4 main things that we wanted to kind of walk through today and discuss and give everybody an update on. The first being just a couple of items design-wise that we wanted to provide an update on. We'll talk through the project schedule because there has been some changes there. We'll touch on the acquisition process a bit, and then we'll wrap things up here with the staging overview. And there are maps out here. There's 4 maps out here. We'll talk about those here at the end, and that's when we can break out. So the first thing here, as far as the design update is concerned, really the project limits are about the same. I think the main thing here that we want to touch on is the design speed. So we've updated that to a 35 mile an hour road. The main reason there was some correspondence from council, and there was some discussion on the road and just in general. There was this road classification, and ultimately for this type of corridor, they're looking at a 35 mile an hour design speed for the roadway. Then the other, just I would say, minor project revision we had. Previously, we were stopping just short of Lower West Branch Road there, and we are now actually reconstructing that entire intersection. Couple of the main reasons there, we were already working through connecting some water main across the road, and so we were getting into the one leg of that intersection. And then just with that work, along with some other utilities, and also there's some ADA issues there with the existing pavement, we're just really getting that set up for future projects going north there. So a little bit of a recap here from our first meeting, just so everybody's aware of what this road's going to look like out there. So this is a picture here of American Legion Road. The cross section of the road will be very similar to this. There'll be the 2 10-foot wide travel lanes. We'll have 2 7-foot bicycle lanes with the buffer zone in there. There'll be a wide sidewalk on the west side of the road. And then again, like American Legion, there'll be street trees along the corridor. Similar spacings to what you see out there, and similar variety of species as well. So just moving on here to the project schedule. So we met here about a year ago, and the thought was we were working through design, and really was going to be construction starting here in 2026, and so everything's kind of slid back a year. Couple of reasons for that. There's been just some funds allocations with the city, which have resulted in that sliding a little bit. Also, we've just with some other projects in the city, we've given a little more time for private utilities to relocate, so we aren't running into those and having to do a bunch of relocations during construction for those private utilities. So Preliminary design, we've got that wrapped up, and right now, obviously you're all here tonight for the public information meeting number 2. We will work through final design here this fall and winter. And then the acquisitions and that type of coordination correspondence will happen here for the majority of next year, I would say, start up in the early spring and then continue into the fall. We will have another public information meeting in the spring, and we're anticipating at that one we'll talk a little more on the acquisition process, right-of-ways, answer any questions that anybody has there, when we're working through that correspondence. The project will bid in the fall of 2026, and then construction will start up in 2027. That'll be the first calendar year, and then 2028 will be the second calendar year. So really the project's split into two years, and I'll touch on that a little bit as far as just the general staging limits and what that'll look like. So as far as the acquisitions go, there'll be anybody impacted by the project. There'll be an independent appraiser that will go out. They'll appraise the property, evaluate impacts based on if there's impacts to trees or landscaping items, that type of thing. A value will be assigned for that, and then ultimately that'll be presented to each property owner that's impacted, and that'll be by the city attorney who will stop out, and they'll kind of talk through that process and provide that valuation there. We expect that process to take anywhere from 6 to 8 months. Again, sometimes there's a little back and forth there, so that's generally why we've kind of got that blocked out for spring to fall of next year. And then just to give you an idea of some of the materials that you'll get for the acquisition process, we'll have the parcel impact displays or exhibits. We have those here tonight. And as we're talking after this, we can share those with you. They're very similar to what was provided at the first public information meeting. There might be just some minor revisions or minor changes, but again, we can talk through that. And really, with those, we can, if there are some questions about impacts, I know we've already talked to a few property owners here. We can definitely stop out, meet one-on-one and just kind of go through what the impacts will be and why. And then so that's the document there on the left. That's that parcel impact exhibit. And then there's 2 permanent easement plats that you see there. Those are just a little more of the formal side of things. Our surveyors, they pull those together. They just provide a little more information on the dimensions and just exactly what you're being compensated for and what we need to construct the project. All right. So we'll wrap up here just talking a little bit about the staging. So as John mentioned, the private utility relocations, those will be here this coming calendar year in 2026. We don't know the schedule of that right now. We're working with private utility companies to identify impacts, and then the expectation they would address those, whether it's just some relocations, or for example, the overhead facilities out there, the power that's going underground. So there won't be power poles out there anymore. So those will be getting relocated. And as part of that process, they'll be boring new conduits. So you will see some activities out there this coming calendar year in 2026. And that'll be through basically the entire length of the project. We're not anticipating any big road closures or anything like that. Typically, they can work, with just whether it's a minor lane closure or when they're boring, they'll be boring in the ditches. So, we're not anticipating any closures here this coming calendar year. But if something does change on that, we can provide an update on that. So the stage 1 or the first calendar year will be the south end of the project. So from American Legion Road to just south of Court Street, that's about the halfway point. And then the second calendar year, stage 2 in 2028, that'll basically pick up where we left off there south of Court and continue up through Lower West Branch Road. So this map here, we have this one out on the tables, and it's a little larger to be able to look at. But the blue area there, again, that's the south end. That's going to be that stage 1. There's a little bit of sidewalk we have to connect there along American Legion Road up to Barrington. So that'll be constructed with that phase or that stage as well. And then again, the red area, that's that second calendar year in 2028 when we'll work on that north portion. So just giving everyone an idea of what the detour will look like for this. This is a detour map for the first calendar year. So the north is to the right of the screen here. And the detour will be, the actual signed detour route we're anticipating to be the same throughout both calendar years, just because Taft will be closed through traffic for those for each year. And so it'll utilize Herbert Hoover Highway over to Scott Boulevard, and then back to American Legion for people looking to get essentially from the north to the south, or vice versa, the south to the north. As we're working through construction, anybody that has access along Taft, we will maintain that throughout all phases of construction. We'll break out the staging in a little more detail, which we can share with you, but we just wanted to give a little bit of a high-level overview of what each calendar year looked like. So as far as updates go, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of the project website that's out there, but that's the best place to find information. The mailer that you received has the link there at the bottom of the screen. That should be on there. That is where you can go to find updates for the project. The planned improvements are all listed out there, and then there are some frequently asked questions that we try to update if we're receiving a lot of comments or questions on certain items. We'll post those out there just for everyone to be able to see. And then as far as design and construction communication, that's going to be the kind of the one-stop shop for all of that here going forward. So who to contact here, as John mentioned, he is going to be the primary contact here for the city. And then I will be also, if there's stuff that comes up, definitely I can be reached for questions, but John will be the kind of the first point there of contact. And then also Scott Sovers, he wasn't able to attend this meeting. He was at the first one, but he'll also be heavily involved with this project. So yeah, that's our info there, and it also should all have been provided with that mailing that went out. Okay, so I think right now we can open this up to some question and answers. If there are, if there's one-on-one questions specific to your property, we can maybe talk about that one-on-one. But if there's more general questions for the corridor, we'd be happy to field those now, if there is anything. Yep.
Was any thought given to the intersection of American Legion Road and Taft being a roundabout? That would sure slow the traffic down on American Legion Road, because nobody's driving 25.
But there's faster.
I'm not sure if there's been much consideration for that, as far as being a roundabout. I think that might have been looked at a while back, but yep.
I was just going to say, you know how many semis are running up and down that road? There's a ton of them.
I don't off the top of my head. We do have traffic counts, so that's something we can provide. What's that?
Every 30 minutes for Williams gas line.
Okay. Yep.
So I have visited with a few of you in my short time starting on the project, and so we certainly understand that speeding is a concern, And I just want to share that speeding is kind of a combination of design, enforcement, and cooperation from the community. And you have to have all those elements working together to make a significant impact. If you just have one of those, you struggle with speed. And I understand the reason people are speeding. There's very little side friction in this area. You don't have a lot of intersecting streets. You only have a few driveways, so people feel like, hey, it's wide open. I can go as fast as I want. There's going to be some challenges with this, certainly, whether the road is left as it is today or it's improved. So we're going to look at ways to try to reduce that speed. And again, it's going to be a combination of enforcement, design, and public education and input from the community. So I've heard that comment a lot. There are a lot of trucks out there. They have the right to be there, so we can't not allow them to be there. It's a public street. We can talk truck routes, but generally that road is more of a higher functional class, meant more to move traffic throughout the community rather than just the local neighborhoods. But at the same time, we realize there are local neighborhoods nearby, so we have to figure out best ways to manage that. So we will be looking at that and doing the best we can. But you know, I've been doing traffic engineering now for, I think it's like 27 years, and one of the most common things I hear is speed. It's a challenge, and I wish there was a silver bullet. I wish there was a magic wand to make that problem go away. But it's a constant battle, which we are aware of, and we will do our best to start fighting that battle and getting speeds down. If we were to have left that speed at 25 miles an hour, I think we're all aware that nobody would drive at 25 miles an hour. So you have to try to balance that and provide a realistic speed that you think most people will drive at. But then you also have people, no matter what you put that at, they're aggressive drivers, and they're going to speed, and sometimes very excessively. And so that's where then you start partnering with law enforcement to try to bring those speeds down.
I do think the bigger issue too, American Legion and Taft, it's not a 90-degree intersection, so it's maybe like a 70-30 or whatever. So when you look back, you're looking right at your speed pillar, and it's just a massive blind spot. And coming over the hill, you have semi-traffic coming from a higher speed, so potentially dangerous intersection. I know there's been a couple of fatalities back in the 80s. So yeah, just I highly encourage you guys to take it someday. You almost want to swing right so you can actually see properly. It's a very poor intersection.
Yes, sir.
Speed limit be from Herbert Booth to Lower West Branch. Will that stay at 55?
I'm trying to think. Herbert, that is still I think that's still county, right? That's county jurisdiction, and that speed, what they set that is up to the county. So if the county, I know if they don't sign it, by law it's 55. So that would be 55. So that's a
That's a big part of this problem.
Sure.
Because the first sign is right past Lower West Branch Road, then they stick 35.
Mm-hmm.
By the time they slow down, they're almost at the end of the road.
Sure.
Yeah, anyway.
Yep. So yes, sir.
Will the grade of the hills be lowered at all so that it's not quite as steep going over the top of every hill?
Yes, I do want to just talk to that briefly.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So as part of that, the design speed, or 35 miles an hour, that's going to be the design and posted speed out there. A lot of that involves knocking the hills down and filling some of the valleys. And so you won't have it'll still be up and down, don't get me wrong. There's still going to be some hills, but it's not going to be like it is today, where there are a lot of blind spots out there that make it challenging. So yes, it will be, it'll be cleaned up. You'll be able to see a lot better out there from a profile standpoint. Yep.
That's jurisdiction over that county road from Cooper Highway to Lower West Branch Road. Is that Johnson County or Cedar County? Johnson.
Johnson. Yep. Johnson County.
Okay, so we go to the board of supervisors then for that? If we want to ask for a lower speed limit?
Yes.
Yes.
I would say yes, but you certainly could start with their secondary road department and talk with them, and you certainly can elevate it up to the board of supervisors.
We lived, our backyard backs up to Taft, and I've seen school buses going faster than the 35 mile. And it's quite disappointing, plus the petroleum trucks that go by, the gas trucks, and there's no edging on either side. So then I wonder, are they gonna go faster when there is the edging, you know, when they actually have curb and gutter? If you set it lower, naturally people are gonna go faster, but I would think that maybe they'd be inclined to, if they set it at 30, then maybe they're gonna do 35, 5 miles over. You know, have you thought about lowering it and trying that?
You know, historically, it's not something that works. I mean, we've as a traffic engineer, we review a lot of those studies. Again, you know, it's about managing that and trying to get all parties involved. And it just historically it doesn't is shown not to work. But you know, we will be talking. This fly is fun, but yeah. So we will be talking to law enforcement about ways to reduce that. Certainly, a conversation with the county would probably be in order to try to partner with them on what we're trying to accomplish with that, with this roadway, what their needs are. So I think that would be at least a positive conversation we could have to get us in the right direction. You know, it is kind of surprising that so many use that as a cut through when it's a gravel road. A lot of people try to avoid gravel roads just because of the dust and you know, getting their cars dirty and things. But it does sound like, you know, there are a lot of trucks and it's a little bit more commercial industrial traffic as well. So I happen to live out in the country on a gravel road, and I wish I could avoid them. My car, I'm sure if you looked out in the parking lot right now, you'd know which car is mine. But we still have the problem. So it's obviously not keeping traffic away. So it will continue to be a consideration for both the design of this project and then afterwards as we live day to day with the project. Yes.
Have you thought about doing a schools, will there be a school zone as you're approaching it like there is on American Legion? So let's say that as you're getting closer, as you're heading north or south on Taft, and you start getting closer to that intersection, will there be a 20 to 25 mile an hour school zone to help people slow down, because you're building these giant sidewalks and there's going to be kids walking to school? So where does the school zone start on Taft? Because there is a school zone on American Legion going north, right? Or going out of town. It slows down, isn't it around 25 for full school? I'm coming into town. Yeah, so I assume you're going to have a school zone on this street too, since it's feeding right into the school.
Have we had a conversation with the school district at all yet? Right now, do we anticipate anything yet, or is that a conversation with the school district?
Is there a reason you don't have Bellows banked down to 20? Why American Legion banked down to 20? Barrington, I understand, but you've created an underpass now where all the kids take the underpass. You don't have a crossing guard there. So all the kids take the underpass to use that, which is working well. But to reduce traffic speed to 20, I'm not sure if you've seen the Facebook comments too, but it's creating a massive traffic issue too for all the pouring out of school back there.
And this is at Melrose? Sure.
I'm saying every single school, Sycamore,
Yes.
not banked down to 20. This is just one single instance where it's 20 mile an hour.
Well,
Every other school doesn't have a 20 mile an hour school.
a lot of the schools are looked at individually, and I think in this case, based on where the school is located, kind of on the fringes of the community, there's a tendency to want to drive faster because you're coming in and out of town.
You spent $1 million on the underpass, so you didn't have to worry about the overpass.
So I mean, those are certainly things we can look at, but I guess we want to focus on the project, but every individual school, I can't, yes.
Moving on.
Yes, ma'am.
Mine is more along the acquisitions and what is the time frame for that? I know like initially if you're gonna be removing people's property and reimbursing for trees or structures or whatever, but what happens, okay, so none of my structures are taken out initially, but during the process of construction, is there any assistance if 6 months after this is completed, my entire wall or whatever is gone, dead?
So, I mean, there are some challenges with vegetation. So a lot of times on projects, we will have some negotiations and do our best to avoid certain vegetation, a tree, arborvitae. And then it's difficult to say we guarantee that the tree will be healthy and survive. If you get into the root ball at all on some types of vegetation, they generally don't do well. So we can work with you and try to save certain things in certain instances, but we can't guarantee their survival. And then because as the years pass, and Jason, maybe you want to hit on this a little bit, as the years go by, then it becomes a debate. Well, did the tree just get some disease or was it affected by construction? So I guess I would encourage people to try to address those issues up front, if possible, because it can get there can be a lot of gray area as time goes by on what affected the particular tree or arborvitae. So that would be my advice, Jason. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, I would just add that typically in the agreements for whether it's landscaping or easements or whatever that might be, there's a 5-year renegotiation period. So if something were to happen within that 5-year period, say a tree is fine day one, and then 2 years later you can see it's declining and ends up being an issue, then we can have that conversation within that 5-year period. I would encourage you, if there are concerns, pictures always help. Anything that you can have a picture of that shows both the impacts during construction as well as kind of a, sort of a time lapse helps to make that case. But there's that 5-year period where we can continue that conversation.
Yes, sir.
Current design shows Cardigan Lane being extended out to Taft. Is that set in stone, or I'm concerned that Cardigan is not a city street. It's maintained by the property owners along Cardigan condos there. I just wonder if having access to Cardigan Lane from Taft is required, or what was the thought process there?
I did notice that it was a private street. Michael, I don't know if you are familiar with more conversations on that.
That was part of the design when we worked through this with the city, was just to connect that roadway there. So yeah, I mean, we can definitely follow up with you on that and provide a little more information. Yep.
I was just wondering about like the time frame of when you guys start digging into a backyard, like lots of fence and stuff, like how long we won't have access really to our backyards.
So generally, if we're grading on the property, so for example, if it's that first calendar year, it's not going to be the full year. I mean, you might end up, if we've got, it's hard for me to say. I would say breaking down into phases, you're probably talking about easily a couple months, possibly, when they go in, they remove the fence to do some grading. They work through, kind of reestablishing that, the paving, everything that is involved there, the underground utilities. So you're easily a couple months probably being impacted there. Again, depending on where you're at, we can look at your specific property and, once we get a little further, give you a better idea of what that'll look like as we work through final design. Yep. Yeah. So there will be, with everything turning to an urban section, there'll be new storm sewer installed, because right now there's just ditches out there. So that will run the entire length of the project. There's new water main that will connect there at American Legion and run the entire length all the way up to the north end there.
Is there sanitary?
So there'll be just a few crossings that we're stubbing across for future connections, but no, there won't be any, I would say, like linear length of the project, just kind of where it's needed to cross the road, to cross underneath of Taft. Yep. Oh, sorry.
Acquisition part, like you're talking about doing utility relocation next year, but you haven't done all your acquisitions as far as easements and stuff. How is that going?
Correct. Yep. So the city's so we haven't started the process, but that'll now that we're worked through prelim design and we're going to work into final, the city will start getting that process going. That way, when we reach, I would say, early next year, and we're able to talk with property owners, if there are easements that are needed, clearly that would be something that we would have to wait on there.
Because you can put utility easement along the whole west side, which I'm going to guess most of us aren't.
There is an existing easement along a pretty good chunk of Taft out there. Everything I think north of Court, that all already has an existing easement. So there wouldn't need to be a utility easement there. To the south, there's a couple parcels to the south, I think between Court and Cardigan, and then south of there we would need an easement in those areas. Yep.
So I was just going to add to that, utilities aren't going to locate onto private property. None of this will happen until the property has been acquired or easements have been acquired. So we do talk about some utility relocations next year, but that's going to be dependent on where those utilities need to locate, and if they need to locate into a new easement that doesn't exist, they can't locate until that property has been acquired. So you won't see people making assumptions that, oh, we're going to get that property, so we're going to put utilities in there. That's not part of the process. All the property has to be obtained first before they would do those locates onto property that would be a new easement. Yes, sir.
With new sidewalk going in, can you describe responsibility to the owners? That will be, it's my understanding that will be the owner's responsibility to be plowing 10-foot sidewalk, maintaining the back of the property as well, and as well as maintaining the grass and all that stuff according to the city's parameters, like clearing the sidewalk in a certain time frame and all that stuff.
Yes, based on our discussions, that will be the responsibility of the individual property owners. Different. If there's a homeowners association, sometimes they take that on. Now, granted, that's probably an adjustment to your dues every year, but sometimes homeowners associations choose to deal with it that way. But it will be the responsibility of the individual property owners to do that maintenance.
How can it be beneficial of a homeowner if we have no access up there in the wintertime? We end up parking out there and shoveling sidewalks. I add more, that isn't something we've asked. It's nice to have, but it's away from our yards. So.
Right. So your access, I can say generally your access will improve because of the change in the profile of the roadway. So you won't be walking through ditches. I'm not trying to say this is going to be fun. I'm not trying to say get excited. I got a shovel. We used to live in North Liberty on a corner lot. We had sidewalk in front, a trail on one side, a trail in the back. I was shoveling a lot of snow. So I get it. It's not a fun thing. But your access will improve, and generally that's been the city's policy when they install these types of improvements.
You say access is improved. Our yards are going to stay pretty much the same. What are you going to be able to do for people to get out there to do that?
I mean, I can look at, individual properties and how the grades change, but the road's getting,
It's not gonna get done, I can tell you that.
Yeah, we still have top.
We get
Hill,
north
so
of it.
it's all uphill for me. There's no way. I mean, you're at,
That bike trail and the roads and all that, let it be, let it run back and forth and stuff. But I don't go up there because of the traffic speeds and stuff, so why would I go up there to shovel a sidewalk? I can keep it icy, keep people from using it.
well, I mean, like I said, my own experience, I understand. I could argue back in North Liberty, hey, I don't use the back sidewalk. Why should I shovel that? But
It's not even on the property line, I don't think, sidewalks. So you're asking us and you're not being reimbursed, so there's gonna be issues there too.
I mean, the trail that I shoveled in North Liberty wasn't on my property. I mean, that was a lot of cities have these policies. It's not just Iowa City. There are a lot of communities with these policies. And I get the frustration. I get that nobody wants the extra work. I understand that. In our case, we're following city policy. This isn't a new concern. Jason, I don't know if you want to just touch on this a little bit with things you've talked about on other projects, but this tends to be kind of a common concern.
The city does mow Windsor Ridge there, Jack, city park.
I'm sorry, say that again?
City of Iowa City mows Windsor Ridge, like the park.
Within the park? If it's a city park, they do.
Okay, that is,
Yeah.
would this be considered like a bike path or something, and then it could be part of the?
No, it's considered a wide sidewalk, so the adjacent property owner will be responsible for that.
So what about the mowing and stuff like that? Where does this line go?
So you'd be responsible for mowing up to the back of curb. And
That's gonna go to weeds, I tell you. Very well trimmed.
I get it. I would echo John's sentiment. Again, I can understand the concern, and I understand that that's been our policy, and this is any of those lots, especially that have double frontage, where you have sidewalk basically on the front and the back, are a challenge. I get that, but that's been our policy, and will continue to be our policy. Yeah.
yeah, so who clears on all that new sidewalk within American Legion? Who clears all that sidewalk off? It's not individual homeowners out there doing it. You can see it's not. Who clears that? Does anyone know who clears that new sidewalk, that miles of it they added out in?
So I believe Windsor Ridge Association does.
Yeah, so we'd ask for the same thing.
Any sidewalk that's part of Windsor Ridge, in theory, should be part of the association that maintains that. It's just gonna probably be part of that, meaning that whoever's in that location will have to negotiate with
Yeah.
the private landowners on, for instance, the Gilmores, the Wolf, Leonard, anybody that's not part of Windsor Ridge, in theory, would be separate situation.
You have a question?
Were the developers and builders made aware of this improvement long before they started building the homes along Taft? This is the first, we moved in 2 months ago, and this is the first that we've heard about this improvement or whatever.
Well, I would say as cities develop, just the nature is you start out with a rural type setting, and then development starts happening. Water gets moved to a certain area, sewer. Then private developers become interested in that land and they build on it. And then for these individual roadways, the city has different requirements for sidewalk and trail. So I think anybody that lives within a community or close to a community needs to understand that really at any time your property could be annexed into a city and things could change. And that's just the nature of growth and expansion with municipalities.
Well, you're anticipating then the cornfield on the east side is going to be developed at some point. Why you're kind of doing this ahead of time, or just decided that you had some extra money to throw?
No, the city never decides. They never have extra money to throw around. So I will say they look at the traffic volumes and the use, and like right now, the city is chip sealing every year because of the amount of traffic on this roadway. So they know the volumes are increasing, and they would like to make an improvement to improve the condition of the roadway and the safety of the roadway and the cost effectiveness of the roadway. But it's a kind of a chicken or the egg argument. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? If you build the roadway and improve the roadway, does that bring development, or does development bring the improvement to the roadway? They really both kind of work hand in hand. So right now, I don't believe the city has any knowledge of immediate developments in that area, but they're starting to get more and more interest, just because of, you have to look at the entire community and where is there land available, where could somebody build a subdivision if they wanted to. And then they just naturally start those negotiations with neighboring property owners. Is there interest in selling land? What is my access to sanitary sewer? What is my access to water main? If they have to bring those facilities into these developments, they get really expensive. But, at some point, private development decides that this is profitable for them, and they bring those things in. That adds traffic. That results in improvements needed for all sorts of infrastructure. So this isn't uncommon, but it's nothing that is like an imminent thing that there's going to be a development there in a year, but you're starting to see interest in that area of the community for growth.
So my original question, you did not let the builders or developers know that you were going to be making this improvement. That would have been up to them, just search that out, see if that was to be done.
So I would say, and I don't know the timing of all of them. I know as some of that development occurred, I think we had begun to contemplate that.
It was just built this year, so I know that you already had your information and you know already.
Yep, and this is a project that's been around for years and kind of been in the planning stages and working through that. I think just building off of what John said, if a developer came in tomorrow and said, hey, I want to develop this area, obviously that's not entirely possible until we make some of these improvements, whether it's utilities, whether it's streets, whatever it might be. And so it's not unusual for the city to make investments in areas that are areas that could redevelop or develop in the first place. Obviously, this school is here, it was put here for a reason as well. So I think overall there is anticipation that there would be development in the area.
Any additional questions about the project in general before we break out and maybe talk about some individual properties? Yes, ma'am.
So I'm going to go back to the traffic. Do you have any studies on what the increase in large truck traffic is going to be? Because it's already increased as the regular smaller vehicle traffic has increased since we moved in 22 years ago. So do you know what the large truck traffic is going to look like? Because there's a lot now.
So I don't know when the last time a traffic count was taken, but usually they're taken on a regular basis, and with that, they often get truck percentages. So I assume we have some of that information to some degree. And then we often do traffic forecasting to try to figure out, how is this traffic going to increase? What might the distribution of the traffic be? As far as trucks. So you kind of look at the area, you look at the land use in the area, you look at origins and destinations, what might interest somebody in driving through this area, and we try to make predictions in that regard.
So when you look at mitigating some of that traffic, that large truck traffic?
I don't know if there's any plans to look at truck routes. That might be an option, but this is a roadway of really kind of a functional class that would allow for truck traffic. I mean, the other option is, do you take them into town? Right now it seems like not a bad option on being on the outskirts with a little less traffic than what you see in town. But as the community grows, that could change. And so some of these things that we're talking about are a little dynamic. The truck traffic could impact how things look in the future. Maybe there are some different truck routes that are established in the future depending on what happens. They may decide that, the speed limit isn't quite right. We want to reset that in the future. But it's hard on some of those things to have the crystal ball. You try to do the best in predicting those things, and then you move forward and you look at existing conditions and see how things change and develop. What goes into these areas for development could certainly change how we look at this roadway. You have to look at the land use and what the city has for land use in those areas. I don't know that off the top of my head. I would assume that, the city's crystal ball is looking in a lot of that area as residential. I just don't see some sort of commercial plant, Oral B, coming into the site. It's just not the right fit. So most likely it's more residential type land uses. I don't know that for sure. I haven't seen that.
They're using it to cut across to I-8.
The city built an industrial park straight south of Taft.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
dedicated by truck traffic, maybe something.
Sure. Yeah. Down on Highway 6, you have a lot of that.
Sold another 20 acres to another rail point off the rail, spur down there. So Williams gas line off there. It's dedicated. No matter.
Yeah, that's a pathway to get from the south side of town to the interstate. That's the traffic.
Sure.
When is the plan for Taft Avenue connecting to Highway 6, the section south of American Legion? Because that will change everything, right? Because right now it's some trucks, I mean, it's a lot of the propane guy now uses it constantly, right? That's where a lot of that truck traffic is, because it goes right behind my house. But where this turns into the next Scott Boulevard, if not the Scott Boulevard, is when Taft Avenue going further south next to Highway 6. So what's the time frame on that?
I really can't give you a time frame. All I can tell you is that it's not currently in the 5-year plan, and I don't anticipate it being in the next 5-year plan. So, could it move up in schedule moving forward? It could. I would say that that's probably not a priority project for us right now. Things change in the future, but I would say at this point, it's really not on the immediate horizon.
Anything else? So if people have some individual property questions, we'll be around with some of the parcel impact displays. And I guess one thing I just wanted to reiterate on the parcel impact displays, we're at like 60% design right now. And it's when you get to 60%, it's a pretty solid design. There aren't major changes, but things still could change. So these are not final parcel impact diagrams. These are generated from a 60% plan set. So there could be additional changes. So with that said, if people have questions, we'll be around at the tables. We have the parcel impact diagrams up here that we can share, and we can have some conversations individually. So thank you all for coming, and we'll be around to continue the conversation. Thank you.